All right, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is how to make slip. Slip is clay that is really wet and moist. Here's some that I have here. So generally with this, if you stir it up here a little bit, it's kind of runny, it's kind of the consistency if you think about yogurt, something like that. That's what slip is, and we'll use this when we're putting pieces of clay together, and I'll demonstrate that a little bit later. But for today, how do you make the slip? I told you before, if you get the outside of the clay wet, it doesn't absorb water very well. So what you want to do is you need to get your clay completely dry, and as it dries, the moisture comes out of the clay, and when it's completely dry, which we call bone dry, then what happens is it absorbs water very quickly, almost like a sponge. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of clay, and you are going to pull off a piece about the size of a golf ball, roughly, maybe a little bit smaller. So here's a golf ball. In comparison, you can see what that looks like. And compared to a tennis ball, it shouldn't be any bigger than a golf ball. You don't need a lot for this particular first couple of projects. If you're going to be using this for a long period of time on a lot of projects, you can add to it as you go, or you can make more to begin with. But once you get your clay, take it then and squish it flat. This is one of the few times we don't need to wedge our clay, because we're actually just going to flatten it out and then let it dry. So flatten it out, kind of like you would a tortilla. I'm going to stand up here. Or not like a tortilla, it would look kind of similar to a tortilla, I guess. Now, if it rips a little bit, it's fine, because we're going to break it all up when we're done, but you want it thin enough so that you feel like it's almost ready to tear at any point. So take this clay, set it out in the sun, let it completely dry so it's bone dry. Now, I have a piece that's already done, so you can see the difference in color of these. This one is bone dry. This one is plastic. It's flexible. It bends. This one is bone dry, and it actually just breaks up very easily. So I'm going to take this clay now, and I'm going to put it in this container. And you want a container that has a lid, or you need to be able to put it inside of the container in a plastic bag, something to keep it sealed, because you want to keep the moisture in there. I'm going to take this clay and break it up into a bunch of little pieces like that. If you take a little rock and pound it, or if you have a golf ball, you can kind of squish it with that. But don't make a lot of dust. You don't want to be breathing clay dust. As we'll talk a lot this semester, that's going to be the most dangerous thing in our class, is the clay dust that gets in your lungs, and it causes some issues. So once you have that, you're going to add a little bit of water to it. And you want to stir that up. You can always add more water as you go, but try not to add too much to start with. You're going to find that what happens is it looks like brown water and then little chunks of clay. But as it sits, those little chunks of clay will soften up over the course of the next 10 minutes to an hour or so. And it'll get smoother and smoother, so you get the consistency kind of this particular here, this is what slip actually looks like when it's all ready to go. Okay, so what I would do is just use that, or stir that up a few times with a stick or a plastic spoon or something like that, and then just put the lid on it, let it sit, come back and check it. Like I said, set a timer or something, come back and check it, and then stir it up a few more times. If you feel like you need more slip as you go. So one of the things I end up with is crumbs on my table. I'll usually scrape up the crumbs. Try not to make a lot of dust, but if you have clay or little broken shards of clay or whatever, you can throw those in your slip, and that will add to your slip as you go. Or you can always take another piece, let it dry out, and make some more. All right, so that's how you make slip.